I woke this morning at 7 to the sweet lullaby of my ancient phone alarm. The screen glowed with an emergency alert, but I squinted at it with half-open eyes, convinced it was just a test of the system. Then my vision cleared enough to read, emergency alert, avoid contact with all humans. Pathogen spreads through touch. Further details forthcoming, remain indoors. A wave of dread coursed through me. But ironically, it wasn't the worst news I've had all year. At 26 years of age, unemployed and living in my childhood bedroom, disappointment is my specialty. My parents, Jessica and Charles, left town a week ago for one of their work trips. They said something about an important conference, leaving me to watch over the house. The watch over is generous, considering I mostly watch Netflix. This morning, though, my parents were somehow already home. They'd crept in last night unannounced, with no calls and no texts, muttering about flight cancellations and new itinerary. I'd barely said hello before drifting back to bed, chalking it up to my parents' typical spontaneity. But something about their return felt off. Dad's handshake was a tad too cold, Mom's laugh too forced. At the time, I assumed they were travel-weary. Now, reading the emergency alert about some freaky contagion, I wasn't so sure. I got dressed in pajama pants and an old band t-shirt, the standard uniform of an ex-college dropout, then stepped into the hallway. To my surprise, a strange hush blanketed the house. Mom was usually an early riser, whipping up coffee or vigorously cleaning the counters. Dad liked to reorganize the fridge or spam me with job listings while sipping his tea. Today, they did nothing. "Hello," I called softly, but there was no response. My younger sister named Sarah isn't home yet. Fresh out of school, she was taking a gap year before community college. She's usually out for a morning run by the time I've wiped the sleep from my eyes. I checked Sarah's room, empty. Her bed unmade, phone charging by the lamp. That meant she went running without her phone. Typical, but she doesn't know about the alert. Where is she? Downstairs, the living room curtains were drawn, everything drenched in that early morning gloom. I poked my head into the kitchen. My mother was standing by the sink, facing the window. Except the window's blinds were shut, so she was basically gazing at closed slats. She didn't even turn at my footsteps. "Mom," I said. She twisted her head slightly, forcing a too wide smile. "Good morning, honey," she said in a voice that tried a little too hard to be normal. "Did you sleep well?" I forced a chuckle. "Sure, but we need to talk about this alert about some outbreak or something." I showed her my phone, but she glanced at it with a mild expression, then turned back to the blinds. "I heard. Don't worry, we'll handle it. Your father and I want to keep the family together, no matter what." The way she emphasized the word made my stomach clench. "Oh right, is Dad around?" She nodded but said nothing else. Very strange. Her posture was stiff, hands resting on the counter with a slight tremor. This was not the mom who'd blow a gasket about clutter on the kitchen island or fuss at me for leaving cereal bowls around. My sense of dread deepened. I found Dad sitting at the dining table, flipping idly through a newspaper with vacant eyes. He glanced up when I entered, gave me that same overly pleasant smile. "Morning, son," he said. "Isn't it nice we're all home? I missed you." He said the words like they'd been pre-printed on a script. I tried to keep my tone light. "Yeah, so you arrived last night." He nodded. "We did. Great to see you and Sarah." Speaking of Sarah, she's out for a run. She left her phone behind. "Did you see her go?" He shrugged. "She'll be back soon. We can wait. In fact, we can spend lots of time together, all four of us." He paused, as though something else rattled in his mind. "We're going to be such a perfect family once we've adjusted." I raised an eyebrow. Adjusted to what? Another vague smile. "Everything's fine, son, you'll see." His words gave me the same feeling as when I discovered an old mouse skeleton in the garage, morbid curiosity mixed with a strong urge to run. I coughed, trying to break the tension. Let me just see if there's more info on the news. I retreated to the living room, Dad's gaze following me until I was out of sight. The TV was all static. The local news station displayed a looping banner. Avoid contact with all humans. Pathogen spreads through touch. My phone beeped with another push alert, repeating the same dire warning. I tried calling Sarah, realized her phone was upstairs. Then the landline, dead as well. Great, we're in a horror movie scenario, minus the popcorn. I had a twisted urge to laugh. Perhaps it was my anxiety morphing into dark humor. At least I can't be fired from a job I don't have. Then suddenly, footsteps approached behind me. I tensed, turning to see my mother again, this time with a gentle grin. I was thinking, she said softly, maybe we could have a big family breakfast. I'll make pancakes. You love pancakes, right? It was so ordinary a suggestion that for a heartbeat, I almost relaxed. But that glint in her eyes was too bright, too insistent. And her left hand twitched at her side, as though restraining an urge to, grab me. I forced a smile. Sure, Mom, but maybe let's hold off until Sarah comes back. Mom's smile faltered. Ah, Sarah, yes, we should all be together. She turned on her heel, footsteps receding. The temperature of the house seemed to drop a degree as she left. With no immediate plan, I rummaged for my laptop, hoping the internet might shed more light on this contagion. However, half the sites I tried wouldn't load. A single local forum mentioned rumored changes in people, especially those returning from outside travel. They act too friendly, one post read, like they want to keep you near at all times. Then they try to hold your hand or hug you. That's how it spreads. Another described witnessing twisted families barricading themselves in houses. Each new comment read like a B-movie script, but my skin crawled with each line. Sarah arrived about an hour later, sweaty, short of breath. She kicked off her shoes by the front door, glancing around as if sensing the weirdness. She shot me a look that said, "What's going on?" I mouthed, "We need to talk," and jerked my head toward the stairs. We tiptoed to my bedroom, ignoring Mom's sing-song call from the kitchen. "Sarah, honey, come say hi." We locked ourselves in my room. Sarah's face was flushed from more than just running. "Why's Mom so chirpy?" She cornered me the second I walked in, offering brownies and telling me we should do a family photo shoot right now. Dad kept nodding with this plastered grin. I grimaced. "Yeah, something's up. Also, check your phone, there's a major emergency alert." I told her about the outbreak, the final warnings to avoid contact. Her eyes widened. "So they might be infected," she said, voice wavering. "That's why they're acting so weird." I nodded, heart pounding. "They keep talking about being a perfect family and wanting to keep us close. The alert says it spreads through touch. We have to keep our distance from them." Sarah paled. "So what do? We can't just jump out a window and flee, or maybe we can." I pulled back my curtain. The front yard looked normal, except for the faint shape of a tall, skinny silhouette standing at the sidewalk, staring at the house. My pulse hammered. "Look," I whispered. Sarah followed my gaze and sucked in a breath. The figure was unnaturally thin, arms hanging too low, head tilted. Even from a distance, you sensed that it wasn't just a random person. My stomach clenched. The thing almost looked curious. It raised a hand and knocked on the air as though a window separated us, even though it was halfway across the yard. Sarah let out a shaky exhale. "That's not human." We ducked away from the window. "I've seen references to a tall, pale creature in the forums," I said. "Supposedly, it stares through windows, sometimes tries to come inside. People say it's the infection's advanced form. Or maybe it's behind it all." Sarah's expression twisted. "This is unbelievable." Then downstairs, Mom's voice floated up. "Kids, come set the table. pancakes are almost done, I insist. There was a sharpness under her friendly tone that made my stomach churn. Sarah and I exchanged looks. We couldn't just pretend everything was normal, but if we refused to come down, they might force the issue. We have to be cautious, see if we can figure out how far along they are, I whispered. No touching. If they try anything, we bail. We descended. The kitchen smelled of pancakes, but that sweet aroma made me oddly nauseous. Mom beamed as we entered, her eyes shining with too much enthusiasm. Dad was at the table, hands clasped. Look at us all together, he said softly. Isn't it wonderful? Mom placed a plate of steaming pancakes on the table. Come, sit, eat. She extended a hand toward Sarah as if guiding her to a seat, but Sarah dodged her hand with an awkward half-step, pretending to fetch silverware. Mom's smile trembled for a moment, then returned. My father motioned to the chairs. Sit, please. He said it politely, but there was a certain tension behind the request. Sarah and I sat across from them, trying not to appear skittish. Now, Mom began, we want to talk about the future. Our lovely family must stay close, especially with these rumors about infections. She cast a glance at Dad, who nodded solemnly. Dad added, so many scary things out there. We'd hate for anything to happen to you. We can keep each other safe. He lifted a pancake with his bare hands, plopped it onto his plate. We should celebrate that we're finally reunited. As he said it, I noticed his nails were off. They looked slightly elongated, or maybe my eyes were playing tricks. His skin had a faint pallor, and the more they insisted on this perfect family arrangement, the more I realized how unnatural it felt. They barely recognized boundaries or personal space. Indeed, Mom kept trying to lean over the table like she might stroke Sarah's hair. I forced a casual laugh. Well, we can watch a movie later. Maybe we will. Keep to ourselves until we know more about this alert. Mom's gaze flickered, her attempt at a grin contorting. No, dear. We don't need to isolate from each other. We're a unit. One big, happy household. We want you to remain with us. She paused, eyes narrowing as though searching for something in my face. Besides, your father and I have grown. We want to share it with you too. My pulse quickened. Share what? They exchanged a knowing look. Dad said softly, you'll see. Then he reached out his arm across the table, palm upward, as if expecting me to place my hand there. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Actually, I'm not feeling so hot. I might skip the pancakes. Sarah nodded in agreement, pulling away from the table. Mom's expression turned momentarily stony, but she covered it with a sugary smile. Oh, no worries. You can rest. We'll bring your meal upstairs if you'd like. Make sure you eat. After all, a family that dines together stays together, Dad finished. A chill ran through me. Sarah's eyes shone with alarm. Actually, we might just, rest, Sarah mumbled, stepping away from the table. Thanks, though. We retreated quickly, ignoring their disappointed stares. Back in my room, we locked the door. Sarah paced. They definitely want to infect us. This is so creepy. They're pushy about closeness, about never leaving. Did you see Dad's nails? I nodded, feeling queasy. We can't let them corner us. The alert says it spreads via touch. One slip and we're done. An idea sparked. Wait, they only came home last night, right? Maybe they got infected on their trip. Possibly that thing in the yard is controlling them or something. I had no firm explanation, but the pattern was obvious. Our once normally nagging parents had transformed into nightmare-level guardians. Sarah flopped on the bed, burying her face in her hands. We have to get out. But that thing's outside, and the alert says avoid contact with all humans, so it might be chaos everywhere. She lifted her head, a spark of defiance in her eyes. We can't just wait around for them to corner us. I hesitated. We might have to, at least until we know more. Let's see if we can gather information. Maybe Dad's computer has details on their trip, or we can rummage the basement for clues. Remember, he keeps boxes of souvenirs from conferences. Perhaps we'll find an explanation." Sarah nodded. "Better than cowering here." She stood. "Though if I see them do that intense smiling one more time, I might vomit." That made me snort laugh despite the terror. Dark humor was all we had. "All right, let's do it." We snuck out quietly, scanning for signs of Mom or Dad. The hallway was empty, but we heard murmuring from behind their closed bedroom door. Low voices, occasionally a giggle that sounded unnervingly forced. Sarah and I crept downstairs. The living room was deserted, the TV stuck on static. In the basement, the overhead light flickered, revealing dusty shelves, boxes, Dad's old tools. A claustrophobic smell of stale air and detergent. I tried not to recall that Dad sometimes teased me for never helping with repairs. "Sure, let's do repairs now, Dad. The house is brimming with mania, but let's fix a doorknob." A wave of bleak humor threatened to bubble up. We rummaged among unlabeled boxes. Paperwork, unimportant junk, the typical chaos. Then Sarah said, "Hey, there's a door here." She pointed to a far corner, half hidden behind a shelving unit. "This looks new. Or did we always have that door?" I frowned. No, the basement layout was always simple, one big open area, a laundry nook, and that was all of it. But now a small door with peeling paint looked like it led deeper. "We never had a second room, right?" I asked. Sarah shook her head, so we approached. The door handle was slightly warm, which made no sense in this cold basement. I tried the knob, locked. "We can break in," Sarah said. She rummaged around, found a chisel and small hammer. With a few pries, the door popped open. The odor that drifted out was musty, with a hint of something sour. Inside was a short corridor, lit by a single dangling bulb. Even from the threshold, I saw the corridor ended in a staircase. Not the rickety wooden steps you'd expect in a basement, but a narrow, winding spiral that disappeared downward, as though we had multiple floors below ground. My breath caught. "That's impossible. The basement doesn't go deeper." Sarah swallowed. "Clearly, now it does." She shone her phone flashlight. The stone steps looked old, like something from a Gothic crypt. A sense of wrongness pressed at me. What if they built this while we were away? "But that's insane," she said. I stepped forward, dread curling around my spine. Only one way to find out. We descended, as the steps spiraled far longer than they should. Each turn revealing more stone walls pinned with drawings. Childlike scribbles. My heart lurched as I recognized my own scrawly signature in the corner of one, age 5. I had no memory of drawing them. Each depicted a family, mother, father, boy, girl. In the earliest pictures, they stood happily. Then, over time, the father and mother had elongated limbs, black circles for eyes. The boy looked trapped, the girl drawn in faint pencil as though vanishing. The backgrounds often included a big house with a tall window. In some drawings, a slender shape peered from that window. Sarah's voice quaked. "Did you draw these? Why are they pinned on these walls?" I shook my head, feeling ill. "I guess so, but I don't remember, and definitely not here. Maybe Mom and Dad pinned them, or someone else." Nice to see my art appreciated, but no time for jokes. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a small chamber. The first thing I spotted was a battered cassette recorder on a rickety table, labeled in marker. My lullaby, age 6. My chest tightened, a surge of memory. It was me, at 6, singing a lullaby for some random home video. My mother once played that recording over and over for distant relatives to coo over. But why was it here, in a hidden room? Sarah found a stack of Polaroids pinned to the far wall. She gasped. "They're all of us from different ages." I joined her, seeing photos of our family birthdays, random dinners, even me asleep on the couch at age 12. but some photos depicted me more recently, like last month, rummaging the fridge at 2 in the morning. Who could possibly have taken these? A creeping suspicion solidified. Our parents, or something wearing their faces, had been building a shrine to the perfect family, using old memories, old drawings, old recordings. This was beyond disturbing. On the table, a small notepad in my dad's handwriting read, "He wants us to be a perfect family, no leaving, no secrets, we must obey." Sarah read it, her voice shaking. So they're forced, or did they welcome it? This is sick. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps from above. Slow, deliberate, they came from the corridor. Sarah and I froze. We ducked behind a shelf, hearts hammering. The footsteps drew closer, accompanied by a soft humming. My childhood lullaby hummed in a deeper register. My throat constricted. We killed our flashlight. The figure entered the chamber, and I saw it in silhouette, tall, inhumanly skinny, wearing clothes that hung off a gaunt frame. Pale arms stretched to the knees, the same creature that was outside. Did it get in, or was it always here? It set something on the table with a gentle clink. The cassette recorder, hard to see in the dim. Then it cocked its head, sniffing the air with no actual nose, just hollows in the face. I realized it was searching for us. Sarah trembled beside me. Finally, after a tense minute, the creature hissed under its breath, like static from a broken TV. It turned and glided back to the spiral steps. We waited in the darkness until the footsteps faded. Then Sarah exhaled. "We need to get out, now." We scrambled up the winding staircase, ignoring the pinned drawings that fluttered in our wake. The corridor door at the top was open, letting a sliver of basement light in. We emerged, shutting it behind us, chest tight with fear. Upstairs, the house was oddly quiet. We dashed into the living room, scanning for signs of parental ambush. None. Then a voice piped up behind us. "Oh, kids." Mom breezed in from the hallway, wearing an apron dusted with flour, smiling like we'd been playing hide-and-seek. "I was looking for you both. I made cookies. We can eat them together." She clasped her hands in front of her, eyes bright with anticipation. Sarah and I tensed. "We're, not hungry," Sarah said. "We were just going to watch a show in my room." Mom's smile twitched. "No, that's silly. We rarely get family time. Let's gather in the den. We can share stories, maybe talk about your future plans." Her tone left little room for argument. Dad peeked in from behind her, that same plastered grin. "Yes, we want to be involved in your lives. Isn't that wonderful?" The subtext was clear. "We're not giving you a choice." Sarah and I exchanged a nervous look. We followed them into the den, seating ourselves on the couch. Dad and Mom sat across from us, a coffee table in between, the cookie plate in the middle. The aroma of sugar and chocolate made my stomach churn. Mom clasped her hands. "We're so excited to show you how much we've changed. We want you to see the beauty of all of us together." Her voice quivered with an almost religious fervor. "We won't let you go out there where it's dangerous. People might try to separate us, but we'll keep you so safe here. Forever." I forced a laugh that sounded unnatural in my ears. "Haha, yeah, forever. Great joke, Mom." Dad just kept staring at me with that unnerving kindness. "You must trust us, son. We only want what's best." Then he reached out, offering his hand. "Come, put your hand in mine. Let me show you how wonderful this feeling is." My heart pounded. I realized this was a direct attempt to infect me. Sarah stiffened, half rising from the couch. The tension spiked. "We'd rather not," I said, voice shaking. "No offense." Mom's lips curled into a stiff scowl, quickly replaced by a forced smile. "But families hold hands, families hug." She laughed, and it came out brittle. "Don't you want a hug from your mother?" Sarah stood. "I need the bathroom," she blurted, stepping away. Dad grabbed at her wrist with lightning speed. She jerked back. The coffee table toppled as she scrambled away, nearly crashing into me. "Don't touch me." she shouted. Dad's eyes flashed with something feral. Mom, though, let out a syrupy laugh. Oh, sweetie, you're so anxious. Here. She reached behind her apron, pulling out a small remote. A remote. She pressed a button. I heard a click overhead. Then the slam of shutters or locks. The entire house quaked as if multiple barricades were sealing. My chest tightened. They're locking us in. Now we can truly be alone, Mom said softly. No more distractions. No more running away. I seized Sarah's hand, the only contact I trusted, and we bolted for the hallway. Dad and Mom lunged in unison, arms outstretched. We dodged them, adrenaline surging. The front door was blocked by some mechanical shutter. We tried the back door, also sealed. The windows, locked by similar contraptions. We were trapped. My mind reeled with grim humor. My parents had apparently installed top-notch lockdown features. They advanced from behind, calling our names in that coaxing, unnatural tone. We dashed upstairs, seeking refuge in my bedroom. We locked it, wedging a chair under the knob. Outside, we heard them shuffle up the steps, tapping gently on the door. Let us in, dear, Mom said. We can talk. We promise we won't hurt you. We just need a little contact. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears. They'll never let us go, or will they? I shook my head, fear twisting my gut. Unless we do something. We rummaged around for a plan. Sarah whispered, the basement creature, it's behind this. Our parents are like its minions. If we can get rid of it, maybe we can free them. But how? We saw no weapons beyond a couple baseball trophies and the plastic chair. My phone vibrated, showing another emergency broadcast, casualties rising. As if that helped. No rescue is coming, I thought. We had to handle this ourselves. Eventually, the knocking on my door stopped, replaced by a chilling lullaby. A child's voice, my voice from that tape, drifted through the hallway. Hush now, close your eyes. Safe inside, we'll never die. Hearing my 6-year-old self singing from beyond the door was nauseating. Sarah stared at me, alarmed. They're playing your lullaby. I nodded, chills racing through me. They must have the cassette upstairs somewhere. They're using it to break us, or lure us. Sarah rubbed her forehead. We can't just wait here. They'll starve us out or break in. We need a real plan. Maybe we can break into that basement chamber again, destroy the creature, or drive it out. Sure, I'll just wave a magic wand, I thought. But we had no better options. We lure them away, get down there, see if the tape or the corridor is the key. The drawings implied it thrives on a perfect family setup. If we sabotage that, maybe the infection stops. Sarah gave a shaky nod. We do it. We searched my closet for anything remotely useful, a baseball bat, old phone chargers. Sarah discovered a dusty can of bug spray. We cracked the door open. The hallway was dark. My lullaby still played softly from Dad's phone or some speaker. The entire house exuded an eerie hush. We crept to the stairway. Mom and Dad were nowhere in sight. Possibly they were in the den or rummaging for more family souvenirs. Quietly, we snuck downstairs. The shutters remained sealed, no escape. Our only route was the basement door, near the kitchen. We found it locked from the inside. Sarah used a hairpin to pick it, a skill she apparently gleaned from too many teen dramas. The door clicked open. Down we went, heart pounding. This time, the hidden corridor door was wide open. Light spilled from below, swirling with that musty odor. We descended the winding staircase, each step resonating in my chest like a funeral drum. At the bottom, we found the small chamber as before. The tape recorder was front and center. But something new. The walls were plastered with fresh pictures. Photos of me and Sarah from literally minutes ago, escaping my bedroom. The vantage point was impossible, as if the house had eyes. Is the creature taking these photos? Sarah whispered, horrified. We approached the table. The cassette recorder was indeed playing the lullaby, though at a slow, warping speed. My child voice sounded demonic. I found the stop button and pressed it. Silence fell, echoing in my head. So they used this to flood the house with the lullaby. That's how it's mesmerizing them. Sarah exhaled, then let's break it or... Before she finished, footsteps thundered on the spiral above. Kids. Dad's voice echoed, too loud, too cheerful. We're so glad you came down. Now we can truly be a family forever. In the corner of the chamber, the tall creature stirred, stepping out of the shadows. Sarah and I froze. We had missed it. It was there all along, watching. My heart jolted as Mom and Dad reached the bottom step. They stepped aside, almost like ushers, letting the creature come forward. Its pale, spidery limbs were outstretched in invitation. Its face was smooth, except for 2 black hollows for eyes, fixed on me with unwavering focus. Then it lifted one bony finger and beckoned. A swirl of insane laughter rose in me. You're joking, right? But no. The parents advanced, arms open like a group hug from the netherworld. Join us, Mom cooed. Feel how wonderful it is. Sarah clutched my arm. We can't. She looked at me, eyes screaming for a plan. The only thing I had was a bat, bug spray, and maybe the cassette. This thing was evidently the root of the infection. If I could destroy it, or sever its tie to that lullaby. Dad lunged, forcing me to dodge. I swung the bat, connecting with his torso. He staggered but didn't cry out in pain, just a mild grunt. Mom tried to grab Sarah's wrist, but Sarah sprayed bug repellent in her face. Mom recoiled, eyes watering, but her grin never fully faded. Come on, dear, don't fight it. Meanwhile, the creature glided closer to me. I lifted the bat, trembling. The thing paused, tilting its head. Then it knocked on the air in front of me, like it was knocking on a window. My ears rang with static as a wave of dizziness threatened to drop me. Sarah screamed my name. I forced myself upright. Destroy the tape, I yelled. She scrambled to the table, grabbed the recorder. Dad roared, hurling himself at her. I swung the bat at him again, but he twisted, seized the handle, wrenched it from my grip. Great, so much for that weapon. The creature advanced on me, nails brushing my arm. I jerked back, feeling a spark of something that felt like electricity. Mom pinned Sarah's arm, trying to pry the recorder from her. Sarah shrieked, smashing the device on the table. The plastic cracked, the cassette inside popped out. She snatched it, I got it. Mom's face contorted in fury. No, that's our lullaby, we need it, we love it. She lunged for Sarah's hand. Sarah narrowly dodged. Dad tried to intercept me from behind, but I twisted away, rummaging for something else. My fingers found the bug spray can, half kicked aside. I grabbed it, turned to see the creature only a foot away, mouth parted in a silent hiss. I sprayed the can in its face. It recoiled, letting out a static-laden rasp. The chemical stench filled the chamber. Dad howled, perhaps in shared agony. Mom squealed. Sarah seized the moment, tossing the destroyed cassette onto the ground and stomping on it. The film reel spilled out like entrails. Take that, she spat, tears in her eyes. The creature convulsed, limbs jerking. A guttural noise rattled from its chest. Then the floor quivered. My pinned childhood drawings fluttered, half tearing from the walls. An unearthly moan echoed through the chamber. Mom and Dad collapsed to their knees, clutching their heads. Yes, finally, I thought. We're severing the link. Or maybe we were all about to die in some horrifying meltdown. A swirl of blackish mist leaked from the creature's chest. It screeched, nails scraping the stone floor. I felt a bizarre surge of pity, along with intense fear. Sarah panted, rummaging for a bigger rock or something to finish the job. The creature sank to its knees, vacant eyes flicking from me to the ruined tape, as though it didn't comprehend its own unraveling. Then Mom let out a raw, anguished cry. Wait, don't do this. She crawled toward Sarah, tears streaming. We were almost the perfect family. We had such plans, cooking, game nights, matching outfits. Forever. Her voice cracked with heartbreak that might have been real or infected mania. Why are you ruining it? Dad slumped, sweat beading on his forehead. It felt so good, he mumbled. Then he convulsed, letting out a guttural cough. His nails retracted slightly, color returning to his face. He blinked, looking disoriented. The creature raked the floor one last time, hissed at me with a final, accusing stare, then collapsed in on itself, the black mist dissipating. Like a puppet with cut strings, Sarah let out a strangled laugh, relief mingled with horror. It's gone, right? We exchanged glances. I sure hope so. We turned to our parents, who both lay on the cold stone, breathing shallowly. Mom. Dad, Sarah whispered. Mom moaned, eyes fluttering. I feel, oh God, what happened? Dad rubbed his temples. My head hurts, Mark, Sarah. For a long moment, no one moved. The silence in that cramped stone chamber was thick as tar, and I was half convinced my own breathing might tip the delicate balance we'd somehow achieved. Then Mom stirred, just a bit, her eyelids fluttering. Dad lifted a trembling hand to his temple, like a man recovering from a brutal hangover. Sarah hovered near them, uncertain whether to rush to their side or sprint in the opposite direction. As for me, I just stood there, sweat prickling the back of my neck, trying to process everything. The cassette lay in pieces on the ground, its tape ripped out like tangled entrails. The entity, that tall, spidery thing, had sagged to the floor in its final moments, letting out that awful hiss. The black mist had seeped from its chest, and we'd all braced ourselves, expecting something. Then it collapsed in on itself, as though deflating, leaving behind only a pale husk sprawled on the stones. And that husk was unnervingly still, twisted at a wrong angle, limbs too long. Sarah clutched the crowbar in one hand, the bug spray in the other, her breath a shaky staccato. For a split second, I allowed myself a burst of giddy relief. We killed the cause. The entity was gone, our parents were free. The entire nightmare was over, right? But then Dad rubbed his eyes, wincing, and I felt a cold pinprick of dread. Because the emergency alert on my phone still glowed, avoid contact with all humans. Pathogen spreads through touch. And deep down, I knew this entity was probably just one corner of a much bigger trap. Mom coughed, shivering. Sarah edged closer, passing me a fearful glance. Do we comfort them? Do we run? I couldn't decide. I just heard her murmur softly, Dad, Mom. Dad blinked hazily, eyes struggling to focus. He forced a tired half-smile. I feel like I've been asleep for weeks. He looked around, saw the craggy, winding staircase, the pinned drawings drifting off the walls. What is this place? Mom glanced blearily at the husk on the floor, lank, whitened arms splayed. Her face paled. That's what was controlling us, right? Her voice quavered. Thank God we're free. I wanted to believe her. But a creeping sense told me we just toppled a single domino in a chain reaction. And the hush in the chamber felt downright menacing, like the moment after you cut a puppet's strings but still see it twitch. Sarah licked her lips. Mom, Dad, we need to get upstairs, okay? Let's get out of this place. They nodded in unison, rising shakily. Sarah and I guided them around the husk, stepping over scattered drawings. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the entity's withered body shift. My breath seized. Wait, I hissed, turning back. The pale shape twitched again, slumped shoulder rolling inward with a sickening crack. A watery cough-like sound emerged, and for a heartbeat I was sure it would leap up to attack. My hand clenched around the empty spray can, useless as it was. But instead, the creature's leathery skin began to peel, as if deflating further, exposing something else. I forced myself to watch, heart hammering. Under that shriveled, white carapace, a more recognizable shape was emerging. A woman's face, slack-jawed and gray, eyes staring blankly. Recognition struck like a physical blow. That's Mrs. Calloway, I rasped, except it wasn't quite right. Wrong name. My brain fumbled. She lived a few doors down. A widow. Sons overseas. I'd seen her rummaging mail in the early mornings, timid smile on her lips. She was Morton. Mrs. Morton, that was the name. My chest constricted. Why does she look like that? The husk tore further with a wet, ripping noise. Beneath the tall, skinny limbs lay a frail, elderly frame in tattered clothes. My entire body seized in horror. Sarah choked out. Oh God, she's our neighbor. That's not some ancient demon. I remembered her shy wave whenever I jogged by, how she once offered me leftover pastry from her grocery run. Now I saw her eyes, clouded by something more sinister, and realized she was the creature we had just brutalized with bug spray and crowbars. She must have been infected, mutated. Probably the same unstoppable mania for togetherness that turned my parents, but she'd gone further. Mom clutched Dad's arm, tears filling her eyes. We killed a neighbor. She trembled violently. She lived alone. She must have been so vulnerable. I had no words. The entire time we'd believed a monstrous cryptid roamed our basement, and it was just Mrs. Morton, our neighbor, twisted into a tall, pale shell by illusions swirling around her. She coughed one last time, breath rattling, then her head lolled to one side, eyes going vacant. A final, quiet exhale. The shapeless white layer dissolved into faint, powdery residue. Sarah took a step forward, then recoiled, face ashen. Her kids lived abroad. She was probably so lonely. That's how it infected her so fast. I just stood there, mind spinning. The emergency alert echoed in my thoughts. Avoid contact with all humans. This plague was citywide, warping lonely or isolated people into monstrous forms. The cassette illusions in our basement were apparently personal to our household. That was how our infection took shape. Meanwhile, Mrs. Morton's illusions had turned her into a tall, skeletal, family-hungry phantom. But she was just a person all along. We ended her life. In the main basement area, dust motes drifting in the overhead light, Sarah peeked at me uncertainly. So we head upstairs. Yeah, I said. We have to see if we can salvage any plan. Just watch out for illusions. We climbed the stairs, carefully. Mom and Dad walked in front, wearing shell-shocked expressions, as if they'd woken from a nightmare only to find themselves in a deeper one. At the top, Dad cracked open the basement door. The kitchen was dim, curtains still drawn. The entire house felt tensely quiet, like it was listening to us. Sarah and I followed our parents into the kitchen, hearts pounding. An oppressive hush pressed in. For an instant, I thought maybe we'd made it out unscathed. We'd gather some food, figure out a next step. But then, I saw Dad's posture stiffen, Mom's spine going rigid, as though responding to an invisible signal. I heard Sarah inhale sharply. Mom, Dad. Her voice quavered. They both turned slowly to face us, and I realized that faintly benevolent expression from the basement was gone. In its place, the same glazed intensity they'd worn when trying to trap us in a perfect family scenario. My pulse lurched. They never fully turned back. We just had a moment of clarity. Mom's lips twitched, stretching into an unsettling half-smile. Dad's nails, barely retracted earlier, looked elongated again, or maybe it was the overhead light casting strange shadows. My stomach dropped. They're relapsing. The mania never left. Sarah took a step back. No, you said you were free. Mom let out a breathy laugh that cut like a knife. Oh, sweetie, we can't escape what's inside us. Neither can you. She lifted her hands, beckoning. We just want to keep you safe, for good. Dad flanked her, eyes oddly vacant, that forced cheerfulness returning. You can't run away from your own family. My heart hammered. Stop. We can't hug, we can't, the emergency alert. Mom cocked her head. The alert is to keep people from the happiness we've found. This closeness, it's so comforting. Trust us. You'll learn to love it. Sarah let out a small cry. "Mark, they're gone again." She pressed herself against the wall, hugging the crowbar close. But I saw her face contort, tears shining. Maybe her own illusions were tugging at her. "I hear the lullaby," she whimpered. "It's so loud." That gutted me. She was succumbing. Dad moved forward, arms outstretched, as though about to encircle us both in some horrific group hug. Mom circled the other way, lips parted in an eerie grin. The mania was back in full force, and this time they didn't even pretend to let us flee. Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting tears. "Mark, if I lose it too, you have to get away." Her voice shook. I felt my stomach churn. "I can't leave you." She barked a frantic laugh. "You must, or we'll all be infected. Then we'll never break free." Dad lunged. Sarah dodged, swinging the crowbar. Clang. The metal slammed into the countertop, missing him by inches. Mom advanced on me with that blank, hungry look in her eyes. "Son, come here. You'll see how wonderful it feels." Her nails grazed my sleeve, static sparking in my veins. "Sarah," I stammered, "we can't handle both of them." She whirled, hair flying, eyes wide with panic. "I know," she gasped. "Mark, just run." My mind reeled. Run where? The entire house was locked down. Then Sarah's eyes rolled back, an agonized moan escaping her lips. No, oh God, it's in me." She half collapsed to her knees, panting. I froze, heart shredding in my chest. "Sarah." She looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mark, get out, lock yourself away, they're all gone. I'm turning too." Her voice warbled, fracturing with despair. "Go." Mom and Dad converged on her, presumably to welcome her into their illusions. Sarah let out a guttural sob, eyes flicking to me one last time. "Run." The intensity of it jolted me. I tried to move, but my legs felt leaden. That's when she shrieked my name, the pure terror of it shattering my hesitation. I bolted, nearly crashing into a side table. In my peripheral vision, I saw Sarah's body jerk, as if convulsing. Dad's laugh, high and unnatural, echoed through the kitchen. Mom's cooing voice saying, "Now we can be perfect." Tears blurred my vision. I sprinted from the kitchen into the hallway, nearly skidding on the hardwood. The entire house was locked, shutters sealed. No way out. My breath came in panicked gasps. The only place left was the basement, that damned basement, the place that started everything. My feet thundered on the steps. I flung open the door, dove down, ignoring the rank smell. Above me, Mom and Dad's voices rose in a warped lullaby, joined by Sarah's shaky harmony. My chest squeezed. She's infected too. I'd lost her. Shoving aside my guilt, I shoved the basement door closed, yanking the bolt from inside. I heard footsteps pounding overhead. "Mark," Dad's voice called, eerily friendly. "We're all together now, come join us." "No," I croaked, backing away from the door. Another slam as someone tried the handle while Mom was singing, "We love you, baby. Let us in, we can be perfect again." My hands shook so violently I could barely keep hold of the doorknob. I locked it, slid an old workbench against it. The muffled pleas continued, a heartbreaking mixture of sweet coaxing and feral mania. I backed away, breath ragged. And there I was, alone in the basement once more. The flickering light overhead revealed every dingy corner, every memory of that hidden corridor, the pinned drawings, Mrs. Morton's horrifying transformation. I sank to the floor, tears threatening to choke me. Above, Sarah's voice chimed in, that same lullaby we'd grown up with, twisted into a mocking chorus. "Hush now, close your eyes. Safe inside, we'll never die." Sarah, my parents, all lost in illusions of perfect togetherness. All while I'm down here, stuck here, locked in isolation, the only way to avoid that mania. If I opened the door for even a second, they'd seize me, drawing me into their unstoppable need for closeness. A sob escaped my throat. I pressed my back to the cold basement wall, staring at the battered old hamper, the shelves of cleaning supplies. The reality was as stark as the emergency alert. Avoid contact with everyone. That includes my own flesh and blood. My sister, who I loved more than anything. My parents, who once made me pancakes and teased me about job applications. All I can do is crouch here, in the gloom, while they roam the house overhead, singing a lullaby that was once comforting, but now sends icy needles through my bones. Minutes ticked by, or maybe hours. My phone beeped, another automated warning. I refused to look. The illusions hammered at my sanity, threatening to conjure images of Sarah bursting through the door, begging for a hug. But I knew better. She's infected, turned. So were my parents, the entire family undone by a plague that feeds on closeness. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears slipping free. This is my life now. Trapped in the basement, cut off from everything that once felt like home. A twisted part of me wanted to fling the door open, let them take me. Because the alternative is indefinite loneliness, gnawing regret. The mania inside them must, in some sense, be blissful. They really seemed like a perfect family, even though it was all a lie. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed the video, subscribing to my channel would help me out more than you can imagine. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.